Hey everyone, in the video, I'm going to break down a recent article from ENE News by Politico that was published on June 3rd, 2026. It covers policy change where President Trump reclassified around 8,000 federal employees under a new category that removes some of the civil service protections and makes it easier to fire them. On the surface, it sounds like a technical change in how government jobs are structured, but when you look at it through the lens of collective action, it actually raises some bigger questions about power, incentives, and how groups of people are able to organize and respond together inside political systems. I'm going to connect the article to a few key concepts from class, like collective action, problems, free riding, coercion, enticement, and opportunity structures, and show how they help explain what's really going on underneath the policy itself. This is where the class concept actually make the situation clearer. Federal employees aren't just isolated individuals. They're part of large systems where many people share similar goals. Most workers in federal system generally want stable jobs, fair treatment, and protection from arbitrary political decisions. So in theory, they have shared interests, and when people share interests, you might expect them to act together, but collective action theory reminds us that shared interests are not enough on their own. Even when everyone wants the same outcome, actually coordinating action is where things get complicated. That's the gap the situation highlights. At the core of this situation is a classic collective action problem. If federal employees disagree with these changes, they would benefit from organizing resistance. That could mean union action, legal challenges, public advocacy, or coordinated pushback. But organizing that kind of response takes effort, time, and risk. And this is where the problem shows up. Even if everyone benefits from a better outcome, not everyone has the same incentive to participate in getting there. Some people might step back and wait to see others do first. Others might assume unions will handle it. And some might not feel like their individual participation will make a difference. So you get the gap between what everyone wants collectively and what people actually do individually. That's basically the collective action problem in real time. This leads directly into free riding. Free riding happens when people benefit from collective effort without fully contributing to it. So in this case, if unions or advocacy groups organize resistance and eventually succeed in protecting service rights, then even people who didn't actively participate still benefit from the outcome. That creates a very rational incentive to hold back. The thinking becomes something like, I agree with this, but I don't need to be the one taking the risk. And when enough people think that way, collective action becomes harder to sustain. This is one of the most consistent patterns in political behavior. Even when people are aligned in goals, participation levels vary because the costs are unevenly distributed. Another key concept here is coercion, but not in the dramatic sense of direct force. It's more about structure or pressure. The policy changes makes federal employees easier to fire. That alone changed the environment they're operating in. Even if nothing explicit is being said to stop people from speaking out, the risk level changes. People start factoring in consequences more seriously. So participation in collective action becomes more costly, and when the costs rise, participation usually drops. From a collective action perspective, this is important because it shows how institutions don't just organize behavior, they shape what people feel safe doing. So coercion here isn't about forcing action directly, but about raising the stakes of resistance. To understand what's changing, it helps look at what was there before. Civil service protections acted like a kind of enticement system. They weren't rewards in the traditional sense, but they created stability, job security, predictable career paths, protection from political firing, institutional independence. Those features made federal employment more stable and less risky, and stability itself is insensitive. It encourages people to stay in the system, invest in their roles, and operate within established rules. Now when those protections are reduced, the insensitive structure shifts. Instead of long-term stability, employees face more uncertainty, and that uncertainty changes in how people approach participation, risk, and even resistance. So the system moves away from stability based on enticement toward a more conditional structure. This is where opportunity structures come in. Opportunity structures are basically the institutional conditions that determine whether collective action is easier or difficult. In the federal government, there are usually strong structures for collective behavior. Unions, formal grievance systems, legal protections, and bureaucratic procedures. These structures normally make it possible for workers to organize even across large and complex systems. But when those structures are altered, the ability to act collectively also changes. So even if people still want to resist or organize, the pathways for doing so may become less effective or more restricted. This is important because it shows that collective actions isn't just about motivation, it's about access, whether the system actually allows coordination to happen. This story is not just about federal workers, it's about how political systems manage large groups of people who share interests but don't always act together. It shows the tension that exists in a lot of political systems. Governments want efficiency and control. Workers want protection and stability. Institutions sit in the middle, shaping how the conflict plays out. And what this article shows is that changing institutional rules doesn't just affect individuals, it affects whether collective action is even realistic in the first place. So the root isn't just job classification, it's how power is distributed through roles that shape participation. So when you put all the concepts together, this article becomes a really clear real-world example of what we've been studying. It shows collective action problems even among aligned groups, free riding behavior and group resistance, coercion through increased risk and job insecurity, enticement through job stability and protections, and opportunity structure shaping what collective action is even possible. And overall, it shows that political outcomes aren't just about preferences, they're about structure, incentives, and how institutions shape whether people can actually act together. At the end of the day, this case makes one thing pretty clear. Even when people share goals, collective action only happens when the system makes it possible and worth it to actually come together.